Emma, is the screen visible, ma? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. So this is the first dividend-based valuation. Now we are looking at the dividend-based valuation. Just look at the first problem. Calculate the present value of one stock 197 Communications Limited, given that the current dividend is 2.5 per share and is expected to grow at 2%. Assume required return on equity is and required return on equity as 10.5%. My required return on equity is 10.5%. Okay, so we'll calculate the dividend. So what is the formula? What we have to calculate? So we have to calculate the present value of the stock. We have to calculate the present value of the stock. Present value of the stock. Now, what is the formula we have? Now, P0 is equal to D1 divided by KE minus G. P0 is equal to D1 divided by KE minus G. This is what the formula we have. What is D1? D1 is equal to D0 into 1 plus G. Now we should be careful here. Sometimes they will give D1 directly, sometimes they will give D0. We have to convert into D1. Look at this point. It is a current dividend. Now what they have given is a current dividend. That means D0. Current dividend means D0 happened, completed year. Completed year dividend. D1 is expected dividend, future value. You might understand, we are valuing for the future, not the present or completed. Okay, current dividend. That's why it is D0. So D0 divided by 1 plus G. D0 into 1 plus G divided by KE minus G. What is 0? D0, 2.5 is there. 2.5 D0. And what is the growth rate? 2%. Growth rate is 2%. 1.02. And divided by KE. What is the KE? This cost of equity 10.5, 0.105 minus what is this growth rate? 0.02. Minus what is this growth rate? This 0.02. Okay, right. Look at this point. Now what is the numerator? How much is the numerator? We got 2.5 into 1.02. Tell me what is the numerator? What is the numerator, ma? Hello. Nobody calculating? Hello. 2.5 into 1.02. How much?
2.55, sir.
You have to get reply, right? So 2.55. 2.55 divided by this 10.5 minus 2. This will be 8.5. 0.085. Am I correct or not? Hello. Right. Now tell me the answer. What is the answer? 2.55 divided by 0.085. What is the answer?
30, sir.
30 rupees is the point. This is the answer. This is the answer. 30 rupees is the answer. Okay. Right. Rupees 30. Okay. P0 is equal to 30 rupees is the answer. Present value. But this is very simple formula information they have given. We have substituted, right? That is not the knowledge we are expecting from the problem. Not just substituting the values in the problem. If they give values, they give values and they give formula. At the end of the day, what we are doing is simple arithmetical calculations. Here one multiplication is there. Look at this. What we are doing here, one multiplication is there. Okay, one multiplication, and here one subtraction, and this is one division. As simple as that. So formula they have given and values they have given. What is the skill we have demonstrated is multiplication, division, subtraction. It is not the skill expected from a CA student. Am I correct or not? So most of the CA students, they are doing the same thing, just formula dumping into the problem and getting the answer. Nobody will ask you in real life to compute the answer. There are softwares, etc. Everything. Our job is to convert. Our job is to interpret the numbers, not to come out with the numbers. Our job is to give input numbers to the computer and to get this. So whatever is the question is given in the question. So in your real life, this is what the question. In real life, you have to find out these values. In real life, we have to find out these values. Once you find out the values, if you give that values to the computer or the software will throw that figure 30. Okay, so therefore our skill is not just substituting the given figures into the formula, right? Look at here. So what does this 30 says is that how to interpret this 30. So what does that 30 says? Look at this. What does that 30 says? So an investor wants 10.5% return. 10.5% is required return. 10.5% is required return. 10.5% is required return, and investors required return is 10.5%. Out of that, what is the two forms of return we discussed? If you invest in equity shares, the two forms of return is dividend and capital gain. If we invest in equity shares, the two forms of dividend is the two forms of return is dividend and capital gain, and this 2% is the capital gain. Whatever the 2% they have given, that is capital gain. 2% return is in the form of capital gain. 2% return is in the form of capital gain or price appreciation. Capital gain up 2% return is from price appreciation. 2% return is from price appreciation. 2% return is from price appreciation. Capital gain. Okay, for your understanding, I am giving it is a capital gain. 2% return is a capital gain, and the balance 8.5% comes from the dividend. The balance 8.5% comes from the dividend. Now, if you invest in equity shares, these are the two different forms in which we get the dividend. 10.5% of our required return. Out of the 2% we are getting in the form of dividend. 2% we are getting in the form of dividend, and 8.5% will get in the form of 2% in the form of price appreciation or capital gain. 8.5% in the form of dividend. Okay, right. So now, if this is 10, now what we want is the price. So with the 10.5% is on what? 10.5% is our required rate of return. 100% is our investment. Emma, do you agree? Do you understand this? Hello?
Yes, sir.
If we invest 100 rupees, 100% is our investment amount. 100% is our investment amount. On that, we want 10.5% return. This investment is nothing but our present value of the stock, our market price of the stock. Present value of the stock. This is our outflow. Present value of the stock, our investment, our market price of the stock. Present value of the stock, or price of the stock. Or price of the stock. Price of the stock. Emma, this is what we are. Okay, so without using the formula, I want to learn like this. I want to learn the problem like this. I want total 10.5% return. In how many ways I'll get the return? If I invest in the equity shares, I'll get return in the form of price appreciation and in the form of dividend. Okay, so price appreciation they have given 2%, and the balance is the dividend. Balancing figure. Now this dividend is they have given. This dividend they have given. Look at this point. Current dividend D0 is 2.5. Current dividend T0 is 2.5. D1 expected dividend is 2.55. This we have calculated 2.5 into 1.02. We have calculated 2.55. Emma, this is 2.55 rupees. Look at this. This 8.5% is rupees 2.55. 8.5% is rupees 2.55. If 8.5% is 2.55, how much is 100%? Emma, can you calculate? If 8.5% is if 8.5% is 2.55, if 8.5 is 2.55, 100% is how much? 100% is how much? What we'll do? We'll do cross multiplication. Am I correct or not? 2.555 divided by 0.085. That is equal to 30. This is what we got. Emma, did I got the answer or not without using the formula? Hello? Yes or no? We got the answer without using the formula. This is a logical way of thinking, not substituting the figures in the formula. This is the logical way of thinking. I'm investing 100%. I want 10.5% required return. Out of that, I'm getting 2% in the form of price appreciation. The balance 8.5 will come in the form of a dividend. That is the current dividend is 2.55. Not 2.5. 2.5 is completed. Your expected dividend is 2.55. Right. So here there are many flaws in that problem. We can't blindly apply the problem in real life, because so our previous exam problems or the ICA study material or practice panel problems, they might have picked up from standard textbooks. That standard textbooks in India, they might have picked up from problems from the foreign countries. That is the point we have to catch it here. Okay, so normally India is a developing country. In most aspects, will follow the developed countries to become developed. We'll follow the developed countries, but there is no objection in that, right? So here the problem is the figures whatever they have given, they might have taken from the foreign authors. That is the reason this unrealized values will come. If you look at this point, India is a developing country. India is a developing country. The stock markets in India is different from the stock markets in foreign countries like US, etc. Because in what way we are different is that in India, dividend yield, Emma, this is called as dividend yield. This is called as dividend yield. What is dividend yield? Dividend yield. Dividend yield. So what is the dividend yield? So how much return I am getting in the form of dividend? How much return for my investment? This is my total return. 10.5% is total return. Dividend yield. What is this 10.5? This 10.5 is my total return. 10.5 is my total return. 10.5 is my total return. So this is called as dividend yield. Out of this total return, how much I am getting in the form of dividend is called dividend yield. Okay, dividend yield. So dividend yield is equal to simply that 8.5% is nothing but 2.55 divided by 30. You will get 8.5. That is dividend yield is equal to dividend is equal to dividend amount divided by market price. Dividend amount divided by current market price. Dividend amount divided by market price. Okay, dividend amount divided by market price. This is what the point. Okay. In Indian stock market, dividend yield in Indian stock market, this is the reverse scenario. Whatever we are seeing in the problem, 8.5% dividend yield and 2% price appreciation. In Indian scenario, it is reverse. The data may be appropriate for foreign countries or developed countries, and long back this data may be applicable, or even in India also, long back maybe 20 years or 30 years back, this data, these figures may be relevant. They are not relevant at present. Okay, so we have to read the numbers, not just substituting the numbers and coming out with arithmetical addition, multiplication, subtraction. I'm very much pity of that. Most of the CA finance students they are not applying the brain at all while doing the problems, simply substituting the numbers in the problem. How to solve the problem, how to solve the problem, how to solve the problem. Why we are solving the problem in a particular manner? Does the numbers in the problem make sense? And if so, in what context it makes sense? You have to apply your brain, read the problem, understand the problem, not computing the answer. Okay, right. So this is the problem. In Indian scenario, this is reverse. This will not work out. 8.5% dividend yield you will not get. You will not get 8.5% dividend yield. That's a blunder mistake. Sir, why we will not get the dividend yield in Indian context? There are two reasons. That may be possible in developed countries, but in Indian context, it may not be possible. Okay, Emma, go and search for every company, the dividend yield will be disclosed in the websites. Go to the money control website and take the dividend yield value for the BSE 30 companies and will identify. And tomorrow tell me how many companies of the BSE 30 listed companies are giving 8.5% dividend yield. Tomorrow tell me that. If you come out with no sir, not even a single company is giving this much of dividend yield, then you understand. Okay, what is happening? Okay. Right. So dividend yield that will not be there. So now I'll tell you the reason. So why in developed countries like India, developed dividend yield will be less? Our question is, what is our question? What is our question? Why the dividend yield? Why the dividend yield? Why the dividend yield will be very less in developed countries? Very less in developed countries. Sorry, developing markets, developing or frontier market, developing emerging frontier markets, all these things. Developing countries are emerging. You should not even say developing, you should say emerging. Okay, anyway, emerging markets. I should say emerging markets. Okay, why the dividend yield will be very less in the emerging market? Okay, and why the price appreciation will be more? And why the price appreciation will be more? This is the question we need to ask. Okay, right. Why the dividend yield will be very less in emerging markets and why the price appreciation will be more. First point, the reason why dividend yield is lesser. Okay, dividend yield is lesser in emerging countries, in emerging or developing countries, in emerging or developed countries, capital expansion, capital expenditure is required. Huge capital expenditure, heavy capital expenditure is required. Heavy capital expenditure is required. Heavy capital expenditure is required. In developed countries or emerging countries or developing countries, heavy capital expenditure is required because we are still in the process of developing. Our development comes from the capital expenditure only. Our development comes from the capital expenditure only. Okay. Heavy capital expenditure is required. Therefore, companies will be retaining most of their profits. The companies will be retaining most of their profits rather than distributing in the form of dividends. This is the first point. This is the first point. In emerging or developed countries, heavy capital expenditure is required. So if capital expenditure is required means one way you will borrow the money. That's the secondary. But even banker also will not lend the money unless until we will put our own equity. Our own equity is nothing but retained earnings only. Okay, that is the point. And too much of the debt is risky. So therefore, the capital expenditure first priority is to use our retained earnings. Remember, for capital expenditure, the first priority is to use the retained earnings. Okay, so therefore, most of the profits will be retained. Companies will be retaining most of their profits rather than distributing in the form of dividends. So therefore, in the formula, therefore the numerator, accordingly the numerator dividend, accordingly the numerator dividend will be less. In our formula, the numerator is the dividend. In the formula, numerator is the dividend. Okay, that will be less. In the numerator, the formula, the numerator will be less. Next, second point, denominator. So we'll get the less dividend yield. In developing countries, we'll get the less dividend because of two reasons. One reason is dividend amount is lesser. And second reason is that market price is high. So why we are getting this less? Because either this will be less or this will be more. So that the output is less. Either the numerator will be less or the denominator will be more. Why the denominator will be more? Okay. Right. As the potential for future growth is more in developing countries and more in emerging or developing countries, as the potential for future growth, because we are in the process of developing. We have not yet reached the maturity or saturation stage. We have not reached the maturity or saturation stage. So therefore, potential for future growth is more. As the potential for future growth is more in emerging or developing countries, the demand for equity investment, the demand will be more. The demand for shares, the demand will be more, both from domestic investors, and foreign investors, most especially foreign investors. Because in foreign countries, since they have developed already and they are matured, the future potential is less. They have already grown. Whatever they want to grow, they have already grown, and the future growth will be less. So therefore, that is the reason they will invest in developing countries or emerging countries. Most of the Indian stock market is influenced by foreign investment only. This you might be aware. The reason is that the opportunities for future expansion has already exhausted in their countries. So therefore, now they are looking for countries to develop like China and India. Okay. So therefore, here since the demand is more, the price is more, and the price is more. As the demand is more, the price will be more. As the demand is more, the market price of the share, will be more. The market price of the share will be more. Accordingly, the dividend yield will be less. Do you understand why the dividend yield in India is less? Why the dividend yield in Indian stock market is less? Because two reasons. One reason is the companies are paying less amount of dividend. Another reason is that because of more dividend for the developing country stocks, the current market price will be very high. Because of these two reasons, in Indian context, dividend yield is less. Therefore, in your real life, you can't use these predictions. Just because we have seen this in academics, in real life, if somebody comes to you and asks you to calculate the market price, don't use this expected growth rate of 2%. This will be more. The capital gain is more. The capital gain price appreciation is more. In Indian stock market, very few people, very handful of people will invest for the sake of dividend. Many people will invest for the sake of capital gains or price appreciation only. So therefore, in real life, this will be reverse. This may be approximately 20%. And this dividend yield, may be 2% or 3% or max 4%. Or max 4%. So in Indian context, if in real life, don't use this data. This data will be relevant in developing countries, but not in Indian countries. So in India, this is completely reverse. We are not for that. If any one of you is already invested in the stock market, just think about yourself. Whenever if you invest in any stock, we'll think about the price appreciation only. Today I am investing at 300 rupees. Maybe after 1 year it will reach to 400 or 500. We are looking for the price appreciation, not for the dividend. We're looking for the price appreciation, not for the dividend. Okay. That is what the point. Or inquire your friends or relatives or seniors, whoever is investing in the stock market in India, they are predominantly looking at the price appreciation. If that is the case, and we are using dividend yield and we are giving too much importance to the dividend yield, this is what the consciousness I'm expecting from the students. Okay, so don't blindly substitute the given values in the formula and demonstrate your arithmetical skills. That is not we are meant for. Okay, we have to think about the problem and understand the problem. This is what the point. Okay, so therefore in Indian scenario, reverse that. Price appreciation, take price appreciation more and dividend yield as a lesser. Okay, all right, that is what the point. And one more thing we have to observe in this problem is, so here we have observed dividend growth rate of dividend mark. In the denominator, we'll use D0 into 1 plus G in the formula KE minus G. Actually, here we have used two growth rates. Two growth rates we have seen as same, but in reality it is not correct. Price appreciation will be different. And growth rate of dividend will be different. Growth rate in dividend will be different. This price appreciation of dividend is predominantly driven by demand, market demand. As the more demand stems from the investor, the price appreciation will be more. Whereas this growth rate in dividend depends upon the company's earnings, and company's future expansion requirements, and company's future investment requirements, and company's dividend policy. All this will affect this dividend growth. Okay, all this will affect this dividend growth. If the company is paying more dividend, means obviously they will be having less future investments opportunities. If they are having less future investment opportunities, the price appreciation will be less. Obviously, according to me, both should be reverse. Both should be inversely related. Are you getting the logic? Hello.
Yes, sir.
If the company is paying more dividend, if the dividend is growing, what does it indicate? Company has already saturated less future investment opportunities. If less future investment opportunities, more people will not be attracted. In that case, price appreciation will be less. If the company is paying less dividend because of more future investments, more demand will be there for the stock, because people will think that company has a tremendous future potential. So therefore, the people will rush to purchase the shares. In that case, price appreciation will be more and dividend growth rate will be less. Both are inversely related, but in the formula we are using both are same. So therefore, this is what makes sense to understand. Academics is too much simplification of complicated reality. Academic life or academic problems is too much simplification of complicated reality. Okay, so therefore don't blindly solve the problems. Read the problems and understand the problems. Okay, so in 2 minutes we can get the answer. It's not a big thing. What all the figures they have given, I said no, we have demonstrated our skills of multiplication, subtraction, division. That is not we want for. We are living in a computerized era where the computers will do the calculations. Where in the era when there is no computers, people are expecting you to calculate. Now nobody is expecting you to calculate. Come out with the inputs and give that inputs to the computer. Computer will give the answer. Okay. So therefore, I want to train my students future ready. We have to live in an artificial world, artificial intelligence world, automation world, where the computer is taking most of the clerical tasks. So therefore, we have to think. Computer cannot think all these points. Computers cannot think all these points. What is the situation in India? Why it is like that? Computer cannot do all these things. That is what we can do. That is then only we'll get the job. Otherwise, if you are doing what the computer is able to do, you'll be out of the market. You will be out of the market. Okay, right. That is the point. Emma, I hope you understand the problem. Hello, not solving the problem. There is nothing to solve here, just substitution in the formula. Emma, do you understand? Hello, concept?
Yes, sir.
Right. This is what the problem. Don't just blindly do the problem. Just go. You have to solve the problem. Understand the problem.